Okay, sir, you can continue the session, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Hi guys, good evening. Let's get started. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Already. Thank you for that. So I will mute everyone here. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned you last week, so today will be the last session for your React, and today the basic, the major agenda for today is, so we'll be going over the demos from you guys, and then we'll have some Q&A, and we'll give some recap session on the basics like states, props, components, and other things. Okay, so that's the agenda for today. Yeah, but did you guys try the application that I mentioned you? Can anyone demo? So I expect at least 10 to 15 people to demo. Okay, yeah, take the screen share access and go one by one. Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, please go ahead, Sandip.
Yeah. So here is the thing.
Okay, super. Okay, when you click on the post, so it should be add post. Okay, so can you come down?
Yeah, here it added.
Okay, okay. And you can delete them as well.
Deleted.
Okay. So for your update, you had a model. Okay.
Yeah.
Super.
Okay. So here it got updated, and if you click on this, it will redirect to about user.
Okay.
And when I submit, it will give the details.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. You had done this way. Okay. So what about the comments?
I'm not added it because.
Okay, okay, no worries.
And I'm facing a particular problem here. When I deployed it, it's not working. It's showing like this. It's working on localhost, but it's not somehow working on.
Okay, so where you did you deploy? So it's Netlify. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens if you go to post? What happens?
It's not working. Mm,
Looks
saying
like you
that
have
page not
followed
found.
a broken link or entered a URL that doesn't exist on the site. Okay, can you click on any other URL, something like users,
Okay.
about, or whatever? Okay, okay,
Routing is not possible.
okay. We will
It's
see. We will
working
see.
perfectly.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
will see in the deployment section. Okay, so
Okay.
it's
Thank you.
Sandeep, right? So
Yeah.
okay, Sandeep. Okay, so any other
Thank you.
persons? Thank you, Sandeep. That was really good. Yeah. Any other persons? Okay, so who's sharing it?
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. I click home. It's same page. About.
Okay. Okay. So you added a new post, right? It gets added.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, you added a new post right now. So is it added
Yes,
at the
sir.
bottom?
Yeah, yes, sir. One second. Oh, not.
Okay, so here you list all the comments. Okay.
And then delete. Page not.
Okay. So routing.
Sir, I have doubt. I used Bootstrap here. Post. I used Bootstrap here, sir. But,
Okay.
dark, but it not reflected in this.
Your voice is breaking.
Not reflected.
No. Your voice is breaking.
Sir, your voice is creepy.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
I used Bootstrap, sir, here, but not reflected in the.
Okay. So where did you imported your Bootstrap?
Yes, I imported here.
Your voice is breaking and your screen is still blank. Now it's moving. Now it's
Sorry,
again
sir.
stuck. Got stuck.
Sir, I can't hear you.
Yeah, your voice is breaking. Seems like you have some network issue. Can you check it? Can everyone hear my voice? What's the issue? Okay. Yeah, seems like you have some issue relation. Yeah, so what I understand is your bootstrap is not applied in your component.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah, can you what is the CSS that you applied? So table, right? So how the table is getting displayed now? Can you show the browser?
Here I use Bootstrap.
Seems
Sir,
like
I can't hear you.
yeah, you have some audio issue in your from your side. So let's see.
And also I have another doubt, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. In get user, I in get user I use name and email only, sir. If I use if I uncomment this, it show an object. I can't get that value in get user. Sorry. It's not like this.
Okay, so you're displaying address.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, you're displaying address, right? That address
Yes,
is
sir.
nothing but another object. So it's an object. So you cannot display object there. That's why it's displaying object.
Sir, if I
So
do like this,
then it will
dot.
work. Yeah, that's what.
No,
So if you
sir.
display
It show errors, sir. See, street is not defined like that one. Cannot read properly.
okay, so what happens here is at the first time there will not be no data, right? So then only component did mount. In the component did mount, you will be getting data. So at the first time when the application runs, your render function will be called, and then in the component did mount, you will be getting some user data, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So at the first
I
time
get
you can, yeah, at the first time you cannot directly get them. So what you need to do, you need to have some if condition, like if address present, then you need to fetch the data. I mean, you need to display that particular data.
I can get data here.
Yeah, that's what. So what happens whenever you come to a component, first constructor will be called.
Sorry, sir.
Then
I can't hear you.
hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what happens when a component loads as per your lifecycle method? First constructor will be called, right? So
Yes,
there
sir.
you have user details with empty. Okay. So then inside, then the render function will be called, right? So inside the render function, what you do, you are calling this dot state dot user dot address dot street. Okay. But your this dot state dot user is null, right? So it doesn't have any data.
No.
So hello. Hello. I think you have a very bad network.
Okay.
Guys, can you hear me? Or is there any problem from my side? Okay. Yeah, okay. So seems like you have an issue previously. Okay, so but understanding is this, okay? So I will send you a message.
Okay, sir.
Okay, yeah. So okay, you can unshare the screen. And any other members over here so can demo that. So who is sharing the screen? It's Arun Kumar. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, this is the home page.
Okay.
And from that post, you could actually delete the data. the new post. In submission, we get the data.
Okay.
And we click edit, it will come here.
Okay. So you didn't have the user details in the drop down?
No, I didn't do that. Actually, I was trying to do something I could have done a lot better, but I got stuck in some place yesterday, and for the past 2 days, I'm trying that. I will just show you what is that.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
But on clicking the post, we get all the details. I just didn't add any CSS to it yet.
Yeah, okay, CSS is not an issue.
So
okay,
my problem is that,
yeah.
Just a second. So when clicking on new post, I get to the another page called post form. Just ignore this hi and count.
Okay.
But on submission, I cannot able to submit anything in details. I was trying to create a context and trying to create a shared state between the this post form and the this post app page, but I couldn't actually do that.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
so why do you need context here?
So that in post, I mean, in post form, when I actually create a new post and change so the state, it gets also changed in the post app also.
Okay, got it. Okay, so what you do is context is really costly in this scenario. Okay. So if you want to have post form, what you need to do is you need to send that ID in the URL. So post form /1. If it is 1, you need to fetch the data of post ID 1 and display them in the wherever. In the form.
Doing so, I want to render the post app also again, right?
Okay, so that's what. So after submit, you need to return to this page, right?
Yes, after submit, I can just redirect to this page. But even if I do so, it wouldn't be rendered at the last, right? That new post.
Yes, it won't. So that's why we had a scenario of having form here itself. So what you need to do here is you need to like have them refreshed completely.
Okay.
You need to fetch the component. Fetching the data from the server, right? So you need to write them in the component in the update. So whenever you come to the thing here, the component will be refreshed.
Okay. That's what I am trying to do for the 2 days, so I couldn't get to the next part.
Okay, no issues. Okay, this is good. Okay, so when you click on that, you are getting the data, right? So that's not an issue. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So for 3 members. Okay. So who else? So this is Manas Kumar. Okay.
Yeah, I have just homepage. I couldn't add anything that in the homepage. I will add later.
Okay, no issues.
Yeah, the about page just I have written my name, something like that. In the post part, we can delete that post, and here we can view that all the user details and all the post comments.
Okay.
And when I create post, it will come all the name. When I submit, it is come. I have just added at the top of the array, at the first element of the array.
Okay. Good. Okay. So how can you update existing post?
Yeah, actually update. Actually, I have tried that. Instead of clicking the object, we have to actually redirect to this another component. I'm actually trying that update post. I have achieved the update part on the same page. If I add the form and update, I can do that. But I want to move to another component and populate all the actual all the data here. I want to do that.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, could you please give me some insight of this, means how to do that?
Yeah, that's what just now I mentioned, right? So you need to supply your ID in the URL. So whenever you click on a particular post, so like if you click on edit, so go to that particular post and URL will be like /1 or /101 or /100. So using that particular post, get the data from the server and have them displayed here.
But actually I have to create means I have to create another form, or in this form I mean in this
You can use the same form. You can use the same form.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So any other students here?
Sir, shall I go ahead, sir?
Yes, go ahead. Please share your screen.
Sir, actually, I didn't complete my assignment, sir. So I have stuck in this part, sir. So I'm getting a error like this, sir. I can't able to identify what's the error in this.
So e.title. So what was the error? So what it was showing?
Sir, I'm just getting that JSON placeholder in the list form, sir. Only the title alone, sir.
You need to return. So in the map, you should have a return statement, right?
In map,
Yeah, there itself. So you need to return them.
how, sir?
Yeah, before li. So before li, have return. In the same line itself. So it's one line, right? So you can have them in same line. 25 and 26 can be in the same line.
27, 20.
No, not like that. Okay, remove that. And before li, so in the 25th line, before li, have return statement.
Like this, okay.
Yes, have space. Okay, so see now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, please have a key attribute because you have a loop, right? You need to have a key attribute. I mean key
Sure.
props. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hello.
So, yeah, go ahead, Mohan.
I have done some basics.
Okay, please go ahead. So about, okay.
Here I can add and edit, but I cannot get the user. I am just getting it in console. I have done up to that. I did not reflect it in UI.
Okay. So why do we get all the users? You need to get only the particular user, right?
Yes, I have doubt in that only, sir.
Okay, so what?
How to do?
Okay. So when you click on get user, what you do? Okay, you need to supply the user ID.
Yeah.
So you need to supply. In the get user, go to the get user where you called that. In your get user button. Go to the button.
This one, sir.
Yeah, there pass in your, so something like you have select post, right? Same way, have get user.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like 140. So line 140, you have function binding in that way, right? So you need to pass parameters. Same way, have get users also. So get users, you should pass
Like
you should pass your post.user ID. So each and every post will have a user, right? User ID. So
yes.
pass that user ID in that particular function. Yes. So now if you go to the particular in the function get user, you will be getting user ID there.
Here should I
Yes,
mention?
yes, user ID. It should be a parameter and have them placed in that URL. So use your template literals.
Yes,
Don't use double quotes. Yeah. And now have that user ID there. Slash.
Is that correct, sir?
No, directly user ID. You just pass your user ID, right? We don't need user.id. User ID. Okay. So now you will get the data.
Yeah, I should give any set state.
Hello, your voice is breaking.
After this console, how to give set state, sir?
Yeah, so then have a state, something called user.
Okay.
So have a state in your component, something called user. Okay, you already have user.
Yes, sir.
User, not users. Okay. So in below you have user, right? So that we can have them as an object instead of array. Yeah, there is two users. Have only one user. Okay. So instead of string, we can have it as an object. Okay. So now update this state. So remove that comma. So that's why it's throwing an error. Yeah. So you see, no. You just it can be empty. It can be empty. So whenever you update the state, so this dot set state of user, you can just assign the data. User equal to colon data. That's it. So now you can display that user data wherever you want.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So now you are getting the particular user data.
Yes. And in this post, I have given some what you taught on form class. That one I have given in this.
Okay. Good. Okay.
The user details are listed in this thing and the comments in this.
Yeah, you missed to add key property, so have them listed there.
Okay, sir.
So each and every loops. Okay, so here in your comments, what did you do? So post ID.
I've displayed the comments. Yes, sir. I've just made a get and made it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yeah, please.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, already I have shown all the details, but I newly have added this click here for details.
Okay.
So if I click it, I will get the corresponding user detail here. So I have comments and get user here. Separately, now I have get users and get comments. Previously, I had this get user and get comments in post itself. Here itself I had. Now I have changed to the separate post. Then I have added a profile. So here I can able to edit the profile. So here I have given like this. Here I'm using model.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Kev.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other persons? The complete agenda for today is to have your demos posted. So please go ahead and share your screen if you have completed it. Okay, so who shared the screen? I think someone shared the screen. Yes, okay. Okay, so learning React library. Why is it taking so much time? So seems like some network issue. Okay. So you display user details at the top. Okay. So what about comments? Go to the view there. So you display only the user details, right? So no comments. Okay. Already. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead, Prasanna. So now we can share the screen. Yes, yes, we can see that. So about okay. So in the post section, you just display all the posts. Okay. So you are going to a different page now. Okay. And then test one, test two. Okay. So once added. Okay. Okay. So you can then okay, good. So that was a warning. Okay. So then comments. Okay, you show the user details and comments. Okay, so you can add comments. Okay. Already. Okay. Okay. So update them. Already. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Good. So if you guys deployed your app to Netlify or any other hosting, okay, you can share me the URL in the chat box. I will take a copy of it. So any other persons who wants to demo? Okay, so seems like, okay, at least I could get some count now. Okay, so now we'll wind up this and let me share my screen. Okay, we'll quickly go over our basics. Well, just give you a recap, and if you have any questions, you can ask me as well. And yes, how to upload React projects in GitHub. You can go to the GitHub and how to deploy to Netlify. Okay, we have a session for deployments, like how to deploy React app and how to deploy Node apps and other things. Okay, so once we complete our complete full stack, and we'll have a deployment section. Okay, so we'll see there how to deploy deploy your changes to, like, uploading the files to the GitHub, and then how deploying them to Netlify. Okay, so please show how to add React in GitHub. Okay, so you need to create a first. You need to create a GitHub account. Okay, so I don't have any email ID now. Okay, so basically what I'll do is I'll go here and show. I'll give some sample things. Okay, so when you log into your GitHub, so this is how it will look. Okay, and you can have some. So you need to first create a project. Okay, so project is nothing but a repository. So what is a repository? So repository is nothing but you are going to, it's just something like a storage space. Okay, suppose if you want to have your code stored in your repository, okay, you can just go over here and there will be a new section here and create a repository. You can have any name, for example, GUI batch 241 weekday. You can have it any name. Okay, and you can make it public. Suppose if you want to share your repository to anyone, you can have them private, I mean public, and if you don't want to have them, you can have private. Okay, and that's it. Just create a repository here. So once this is done, okay, so you can go to the code section here. So code issues, and there will be many sections here. So go to the code section here. Okay, if you want to upload some code, so here, like if you want to create a new file, you can create a new file directly here. Or if you want to upload your files, for example, you already have it in local, right? Go to the upload existing file. Just upload a file here. Okay, suppose if I want to upload any folder, so GUI app, something like this and something like this. Okay, I'm going to upload them. And once you upload, you can give some names to here. Okay, you can have some description or whatever. Okay, if you don't want to do this, you can just commit the changes here. Okay, so your code will be uploaded in your GitHub. So that's how we will be deploying our apps. So I will like storing our apps here. Okay, so see here, our code will be here. So GitHub is nothing but you have Google Drive and other things, right? Same way, this is a repository to store your code. Okay, so that's the thing. You don't. There is no major things here. Yeah. Please show how to add React in GitHub. Okay, so can you explain use memo once using where it helps in our website? Use memo. So what I need to do is I need to explain you what is memo, and I need to go over other concepts, just like out of syllabus now. Okay, So I'm not going to confuse yourself with advanced concepts. So basic React hooks that you learned is use state, use effect, use reducer, use context, and use ref. Okay, so that's how we basically use. So yeah, that's the thing. I'm not going to cover the use memo part, because if I want to cover use memo, I need to explain what is a memo, and it takes one more session. Okay, yeah, thanks for the understanding. So in this way, you have to upload each file. Okay, how to add folder? Yeah, you can add folder as well. For example, like upload files here, right? So same section, go here in your finder. Okay, for example, you will be having a folder library. So here, if I go to something like this, and if you want to upload your source folder, just drag them here. Okay, so it will upload with the source folder. See, source job applicant. You'll create a folder in your thing. Okay, and just commit your changes. So now source folder will be there. Inside that, your files will be there. Okay, all right. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll quickly go over the things. I'm going to cover very basic, like how to create a component, how to have states, props, and lifecycle methods. Okay, so basics of your React thing. So in the first class, what we saw, so something called what we started is npm. Okay, so what is a npm? Npm is nothing but node package manager. It is going to make you to pull some code from the npm repository. So npm, inside your npm, you'll have some open source libraries, many libraries, millions of libraries will be there. If you want to have them posted in your if you want to use it in your application, you can use them in your application using some basic commands like npm install and npm uninstall. And if you want to install them globally, npm install -g. Okay, so basic thing. So then when you start with, then we saw like what is the basics of JavaScript that is very specific to your React. Okay, so for example, class, objects, and how to handle like how to handle spread things and array map, and some basic things that are very specific to React. Okay, so then in our first class, you'll saw some theory, how to create what is a component and other things. Then we saw how to kickstart our application. So how do we kickstart our application? We have something called create React app. Okay, so npm install create React app. Create React app will give you a skeleton. Okay, so something like this, your basic folder structure it will give. Okay, then what you need to do, suppose you can add some files into it. Okay, and first thing is component. Okay, so the first file that will be called as your index.js. Okay, so inside index.js, what we will do, we will have our React things imported, and there is a package called React DOM. Okay, so what is the purpose of it? It is going to place our React application in the real DOM. Okay, so basically your React DOM has a function called render. Okay, it takes two parameters. One is what is the React source that you are going to place in your real DOM, and where do you want to place it? Okay, so what do you want to place and where do you want to place? So where do you want to place? So document.get element by ID. Okay, so which is in our public folder and index.html. Okay, so div ID root. Okay, so basic thing here. So our application will get mounted in this particular location in your real DOM. Okay, so that is the purpose of React DOM.render. Okay, so then what we have our app component rendered here. Okay, so this is how we create a, so there are two types of component. One is class component and one is functional component. Okay, so your app.js is nothing but a class component. Okay, so what is a class component? Basically, class component is nothing but it is going to make use of your ES6 classes. Okay, so you have something called class, right, in your ES6. So those concepts are introduced in your React.js. Okay, and you are going to inherit some properties from your React's component. Okay, so class, app, extends, component. So where is this component from? From your React library. Okay, so So that's how you need to start your React class component. Okay. So then we saw, so as usual, whenever a class is used, for example, if you want to create an object in your class, for example, this is consider this is a basic JavaScript class. Don't consider it as a React now. Okay. So this is a basic Java class. Okay. How will you create a object? So you'll have something called const app new app. Okay, so this is how you create an app, right? So I mean, you will create an object for your class, right? So consider this class. Okay, so basic JavaScript class, and if you want to use them, you will call this way. Okay, so whenever you call this, what will happen? New app, your constructor will be called, right? So in your constructor, everything is happening like this start. So you can initialize some states, initialize like, so whenever you use constructor inside your child class. So what is the child class here? Your app component is your child class and component is your parent class. What is the reason? Because you are extending a property from your component class inside your class. Okay, so whenever you do that, okay, so if you use constructor inside your child class, you need to call your super constructor. That what it means is this particular super, right? This will call the constructor that is inside your components library. Okay, the components class. Okay, so you need to always call super here. Okay, then you can declare some properties, this dot state, and you can have them used in your class. Okay, so now, so this is how we basically in your JavaScript will do. Okay, so exactly the same way. Okay, so then what happens in your React? So constructor will be called and automatically then render will be called, right? So that's what our lifecycle method is. So basically inside your React, so this will be the thing, React app dot render. Okay, so this is what will happen inside your React's library. Okay, so the form, this particular two lines, right? This particular two lines is nothing but this. Okay, so this is how you place your component inside your React. Okay, so inside your React, you'll be having this component, but internally what it will be here is they will create a object for your class. Okay, and they will call the render function directly. Okay, so that is how it has been built. Okay, if you use normal JavaScript, that was your code. Okay, so render function will be called and automatically whatever that you return from your render function, okay, that will be loaded in your real DOM. Okay, so that is the thing. So what are all some lifecycle methods that we know? Okay, so first thing is we just created our class component. Okay, so then what we see, what we want to see is functional component. Okay, so what is a functional component? Functional component is exactly similar to your JavaScript function. It is just going to return some elements from inside from that particular return statement. Whatever that is returning from that statement, that is going to render exactly similar to this particular return statement. Okay, so this is all about your classes. I mean class component and functional component. So what is a state? So you have multiple properties inside your class. Okay, so like you can have any properties, this dot name, and you can have something like this. Okay, and you can have this dot anything. Okay, but what is the difference between this particular normal property and a state? Okay, so that is the question. So what happened here is, so whenever if you want to modify your state, okay, so you need to use something called set state. So whenever you call set state, automatically your render function will be called and your UI will be re-rendered. Okay, suppose if you have any other properties like this dot name, okay, so if you change this property, will it re-render? Okay, so that's not going to happen, right? So that's how that is the purpose of your state. So state is the one that is going to handle the behavior of your application. Okay, so if you want to modify your state, you need to use something called set state. Okay, that's the thing. So far clear about this? So far clear about the components, class and functional components, states. Okay, alrighty. Okay, so now we just created our basic component, class component, and how to render them and other things. Okay, so let's move on to lifecycle methods. Okay, so what is props drilling in React? I'll come in short. Okay, so it is something like a context topic. Okay, so I'll come with the context topic now. So now what is the lifecycle method? So if you go to the React's documentation, I will go here to my plans. life cycle method. So this is all about your life cycle methods. Okay. So mounting section, mounting phase, updating phase, and unmounting phase. So as you know, I just now told you, right? So whenever mounting is called, okay, so whenever the mounting phase is done, constructor will be called, and your initializations are done, and then render function will be called. So that's what I told you in your app component. Okay. So once your render function will be called, then automatically component did mount will be called. Okay. So what is the purpose of component did mount? So inside our component did mount, okay, so we can write some API calls that is going to load our initial data in our component. Okay. Suppose if you want to display some data from the server at the initial phase, okay, you can use component did mount. Okay, and it is going to be called only once inside your application, inside your component. Okay, so then what is an updating phase? So that's why we use something called component did mount here. We just console them. Okay, so when what is the hierarchy? Constructor. Once constructor is called, your render function will be called. Okay, and all the initial data will be loaded. Okay, so then your component did mount will be automatically called. Okay, so that's how the hierarchy is. Then what is the updating phase? So whenever you get a new property or whenever you use set state, okay, what will happen? It will call render function, and then it will call something called component did update. Okay, and between render, whenever you modify the state here, and whenever it calls render, there is an in between state that is something called should component update. Okay, so what is the reason for this? Suppose here when I click on the increment button, okay, what will happen here? I'm going to call this increment function and update my state here. Okay, so I'm updating my state like count equal to 0, right? So something like count 0 plus 1. So once you call your set state, okay, so once you call your set state, what happens here is your should component update will be called automatically. Okay, so what is the purpose of should component update? So should component update is nothing but, as the name suggests, it is asking you a question. Suppose that do I need to update my component? Okay. What it means is, do I need to re-render again? Okay, so that is the question. Okay, so what happens here is you call your increment function, your state will be increased like 0 to 1. Okay, and whatever that you return from your should component update, so it should return boolean. Okay, if you return true, okay, it will update the UI. What it means is whenever you return to, your render function will be called. Okay, if you return false, okay, it will stay here itself. Only the state changes, but it will not reflect in the UI. Okay, so that is what here should component update is. By default, it is true. Okay, so even if you don't mention it, okay, it will your UI will be re-rendered whenever the state change happens. Okay, so should component update, we just printed them and return true. So once you return true, your render function will be called. Okay, so that is how the hierarchy is. Set state, and in between there should be something called should component update. Okay, and once it is done, you can call your render function. Okay, so once the render function is called, now your UI has been updated, right? So in order to give you a confirmation, there is a state called, there is a lifecycle method called component did update. Okay, so what is component did update? What it means is your component has been updated successfully. Okay, so here render will be called, and then component did update will be called now. Okay, so that is the confirmation that your UI has been, your render function has been called and re-rendered. Okay, so that is the confirmation you can have in the component update. Okay, so now so we have something called component will unmount. Okay, so what is the purpose of unmounting phase? Suppose you have a component. Okay, so you need to remove that component. Okay, so whenever the component is removed, this particular function will be called. So basically we had a example, right? So in my app.js, I just had show hide button. Okay, whenever there is a show and whenever there is a hide, I showed and removed. Okay, so that is what happening here. So whenever I hide that particular UI, okay, whenever I have false inside my show here, what will happen? Your UI, your component will be hidden, right? So that's how I told you this way. Okay, so automatically your component will unmount will be called. Okay, whenever that particular component is removed from your DOM. Okay, so that's how your lifecycle methods works. Okay, clear? Clear on the lifecycle methods? This component did mount like IIFE, so immediately invoke the function. No, So it's not like immediately invoke function. Okay, so application of should component update. Okay, suppose you have a form, okay, and at one point of time, okay, for example, how can I say real-time example? Okay, so you are going to apply for a company for certain role, okay, so you will be sending job application to your company, to that particular company, and you will be filling some form, okay, so it will allow you to enter some data inside your form, okay, so once you just send it to the once you save or submit, okay, so they should not allow you to edit the form, right, because it has your form has been, your application has been submitted, okay, so now you are not allowed to enter your form, or it should be read only, okay. In that case, you can just go to a should component update and have return false here, okay. So if you return false, what will happen? Whenever a state change happens, this will not call, right? So that's why we will use should component in that way, okay. So we will have false here if it is submitted, okay. If it is not submitted, we will have true here, okay. So that is the thing, some real-time scenario. Clear on the example that I told, should component update. So basically, if you want to have your state changes, if you want to stop your state changes to be updated in the UI, okay, you can use should component update and have them false here, okay. And if you want to have them true, you need not mention this particular function at all. By default, it's true, okay. Alrighty, okay. Can you show examples for update? Update in the sense component did update. Okay, so the real-time scenarios I told you already, right? So whenever I to google.com. So if I go here, so what we'll have whenever we type in our form, for example, if I type in something here, okay, so something like this, if I type in here, what will happen? We will update our state, right? So on change, we will have our states updated, okay? And based on the data, we are here, see here, your list, the suggestions are coming here, right? Like recommendations, okay? So this is something from your server, okay? So those API calls you can write inside your component update, okay? So you can check like if for example, you can have a text box, and whenever you are typing, okay, you can get some recommendations from your server, okay, making an API call to the server and get these data, okay. So that is the real-time scenario of your component update, okay. And that's why I mentioned API calls here. Clear on this example? So basic example is your google.com. Alrighty, okay. Now, so we are done with our life cycle methods. So the basic components are done. So now, so what else? So I need to go here. So destructure, components, life cycle methods. Okay, form handling. Okay, so go here. Job application. Okay, so form handling. So form handling, I mentioned you already. Okay, so we need to have states for whatever the forms that you have. For example, name, age, and role apply. Okay, suppose you have them. Okay, and you can have a common function called handle change. Okay, so which is going to handle our whenever we change a form. Okay, that particular function will be called. Okay, so go here, and I have a text box, input type text, and name called candidate name. Okay, value something called you need to. So there are two types of components. I told you, right? Controlled forms and uncontrolled forms. What is a controlled form? Controlled form is nothing but your component or your form is going to controlled by your state. Okay. So what it basically means is you're binding yes your state to your form. Okay. So for example, this is a text box. You just binded your value to this dot state dot candidate name. Okay. And as usual on change, I have this dot handle change. Same way for my age. Okay, I have my state here and handle change. Same way for other things as well. Okay, so that is how controlled forms works. So whenever there is a change happens, okay, you're calling handle change here. So what happens here in your handle change? So we'll be getting our event attribute, right? So whenever there's a change happen, Inside your event attribute, we'll have something called target event dot target dot name event dot target dot value. Okay, so what is the name? So name is nothing but this particular property. Okay, value is nothing but this particular property. Okay, so I'll be getting over here. Okay, and I can check each and every. For example, if it is a candidate name, we should have some validation, right? So if it is empty, okay, so candidate name is empty is your errors. Okay, so we are having error object here, right, in our states in order to show our states. Okay, same way, if it is not empty, you can just mention there is no error. Okay, same way for age. So if it is empty, candidate age is empty, and if the age is less than 18, you can have something called candidate age should not be less than 18, and if there is no error, you can have empty. Okay, so basic errors here. Okay, and have them updated in your state. So this I told you, right, dynamically updating the data. So if the candidate name comes, it will sit here. If the candidate age comes, it will sit here. Okay, so basic dynamically we are getting those values updated in our state. Okay, and we are updating errors as well. And whenever we submit the form, we will be calling handle submit. So which is this particular function here, handle submit. And I told you, right, event.prevent default. What is the reason? Because by default, how your form works is whenever you submit a form, okay, your page will be refreshed. And in order to overcome this, default behavior, we need to have something called event.prevent default, prevent default form behavior. That's what event.prevent default. And here you can just take over your state and send the data to the server. Okay. So this is how your normal form handling works with your React application. Okay. The same can be implemented inside your formic library. Okay. So what is a formic library? So formic library is to manage our forms. Okay. So it takes three parameters: initial values, validate, on submit. Okay, so three properties basically. So what is the initial values? Okay, so what are the form you have, like candidate name, age, and role applied, right? But they can be managed here. Okay, you can just mention initial values, something like states. Okay, so then we need to give something called validate function. So inside your validate, you need to give a function. Okay, and it should return your error object. Whatever that you written here, that will be applied as an error. Okay, so I'll be getting values whenever I type in. Okay, I'll be getting values. I can check like candidate name is empty or not, candidate age is empty or not, candidate age is less than 18. Okay, so those things. So that then I should give on submit. Okay, so whenever there's a submit happens, this particular function will be called. Okay, so your formic library gives us all these properties: values, touched, errors, handle blur, handle submit, and handle change, everything. Okay, so what is the reason for this? Okay, so we don't need to write handle change. We don't need to write states. We don't need to have errors. We don't need to manage anything. Okay, so everything will be handled. Everything will be given by your formic library itself. You just need to apply there. For example, values dot candidate name, and on change handle change is from here. Same way handle submit, it's from here. Okay, so everything is coming from your library itself. Okay, using that you can just bind them inside your application. Okay, so basic understanding of formic library. So if you don't want to even mention in this way, there are some advanced features in your formic library. Okay, so formic, form, field, and error message. So if you go here, you have your own form. Okay, and you have something called on submit and handle submit. Same way label and input type text box, and you gave these things, right? It can be reduced to even very easy. Okay, so see here now the same thing. Okay, and you can go over here, you can use form, which is from your formic library. Same way label is directly will be using it, and then field. So we have something called input type text, right? So if you can directly mention field type equal text, and you can just get a name here. Okay, so if you do this, you don't need handle change, you don't need to use handle submit, you don't need anything at all. Okay, you just need to have this thing. You don't need state, values, error, and whatever. Okay, so basic thing is you need to use the same name. So for the field name equal to candidate name, for the same field, if you want to have error, you need to mention name equal to candidate name. Same way for age, type equal to number, and again candidate age, and candidate passed out, and just give the submit. Okay, so when you give the submit, and everything will be handled by your formic library itself. Okay, so this is how form handling works in your React. Okay, you can use your own React application or own controlled forms, or you can go ahead and directly use your formic library in this way. Okay, Even if you want to have more specific things to be done in your formic library, you can go ahead and do this in this way. Okay, so that is the thing. Clear on this? Clear on the form handling part? So clear on the form handling and formic library? Can everyone confirm? No? Alrighty. Okay. So now, what we see here is API calls. Okay. So what is the library that we use to make API calls? So we can basically use fetch. Okay. Or if you want to use Axios, we can use Axios as well. Okay. So where did we use? So post app. Yeah, here it is. So what we have done here, so basically we are going to display all the posts. Okay, so we basically what we had a form basically here. Okay, so first I will show you table. So I'm using bootstrap table and some header functionalities, and inside my table body I have my post and all the post looping here. Okay, so post.id, post.user id, post.title, and post.body. Okay, and I mentioned something called key here. So what is the purpose of key? So whenever you loop through things in your React application, you need to specify a key attribute. It should be a unique ID. Okay, it should be different from other tr tags. Okay, so here you use tr tag here, right? So the other there should be a difference between one row and another. Okay, so that's why we need to mention key. Okay, if you don't mention, it will throw you a warning in your console, like each row should be unique. Okay, so that's it. So then what we had, we just display those in a table, and we had edit button, delete button. Okay, so what we had done here, so we had a form at the top, like it takes user ID, it takes title and body. Okay, and we have something called handle change, and everything is same. Okay, so nothing new. So whenever we go here, we had three function, actually four function for get, post, CRUD operation: create, read, update, and delete. Okay, so here it is get. So which is something like making an API call to the server. Okay, so axios.get and that particular API URL. What is the API URL? Here it is. Okay, post. So if you get that, await will give you a response object. Inside your response object, there will be something called data. Okay, so we are doing object destructuring to get the data from it. Okay, and update them into a state. So post to tell that particular data. What will happen now? Whenever you call this state, your render function will be called, and your post will be looped through the things. Okay, so that is the thing here with your state set state. And then creating post, okay, the same URL. Okay, so how to create a post? We should use something called post method. Okay, and you need to give three URL and what is the data that you want to create. Okay, user ID, title, and body. Okay, so in return, what it will give? It will give us again a data. Inside the data, we'll be having our post ID and other things. Okay, because it has been successfully created, right? So we will be getting ID. So what I have done here, we just took a copy of all our posts and push it to the array. Okay, so basic thing here, nothing new, and update our state. Okay, so now update post. So in our update post, what we did, the same thing. Okay, so what is the post that you want to update? Okay, only thing is inside your URL, you should mention the post ID. Okay, so post/1, post/2, and those things we'll be having it here. And now if you want to update your post. So then you need to update your post inside your post array, right? So it needs to be modified in the UI also, right? So we are getting the index of the particular post. Okay, so which post that you are going to update. For example, if you want to update your second post, okay, so you can directly mention like post.id and whatever the ID that you want. For example, 2, 3, whatever the post that you edit, you can directly mention here and get the index. And using that index, you can directly change the data, right? So that's what we have done here. Okay. And after that, you just need to update your state. So then lastly, so we have something called delete post. What is the delete post do? It is going to delete the post. Okay. So delete the API, okay, delete method and API URL and whatever the post that you want to delete. Okay. So once it is done, what you need to do? So you have deleted your post data from the server. Okay. Now you need to update in the UI as well, right? So you just use like I just took a copy of my post. Okay. Inside just use spread operator. And then I'm just filtering out that particular ID. So all the posts except the deleted one. Okay, so that is what I have doing here, and update our post again. Okay, so that is what delete post does. And other than that, handle change, handle submit, and in your handle submit, we just had something where if there is an ID present, it is going to update post. And if the ID is not present, it is going to be a create post, as you know. Okay, so this is how a normal CRUD operation works. Okay, and we just added our bootstrap things here. Okay, so what is the bootstrap thing here? So React Bootstrap. This is a library that is going to merge React and Bootstrap. Okay, it gives us some component, table, button, and other things. Okay, and those components only we are using here, table and your buttons. Okay, so clear on this, clear on the API part, CRUD operations. So git delete, and we are done with this. So what else? Okay, can I get a yes from everyone? So I'm going to get response from it. How to add images? Yeah, that's what I mentioned you, right? In the public folder, whatever that you mentioned, you can have your CSS, you can have your images and everything posted inside your public. Okay, you can have that folder and have them imported in your application, or you can have images folder inside it. And suppose something like you are just importing in this way, right? I can go here. How's that? So you're importing your app component in this way, right? So you can even mention, you can even import the images in the same way. Okay, so that is not an issue at all. You can have them imported here, and you can use them directly in the images section. Yeah. So now let's move on to the hooks. So what is the purpose of hooks? So hooks is nothing but, so in your class component, we have states, lifecycle methods, and other things like context, and we have something called references we had, right? So these things were not in the functional component. Okay, so that's why your what else? Like your React hooks comes into place. Suppose if you want to have states, okay, you need to use something called use state. So using your use state and whatever that you mention inside your use state, it can be an object, it can be a string, it can be a number, it can be an array, whatever. Okay, whatever that you mention. Okay, use state will return an array with two elements. Okay, one is your first state, the array element. First element is your state, and a function that is going to something like set state, or you can have any name. Okay, the function that is going to update your state. Okay, that's what it gives. So your use state gives two things. It takes initial state, okay, and gives us two things. One is state and your function that is going to update your state. So what we have done here, so on click we have increment, decrement, and reset. Okay, and we have displayed our state.count here. So state.count here. Okay, so now when I do increment, we are going to call increment function, and we are just going to call your set state here. And same way for decrement and reset. Okay, so here what you need to do, you just need to spread your state, existing state, and then modify your property. What is the reason? Because other than count, you have something called name. Okay, you may have other properties as well. So you need to first take your state here and then modify your count. Okay, so it will override the count inside your state. So suppose the count equal to 0 and name equal to Gubi will be placed here. And then what do? You're modifying your count, right? Okay, so your existing count will be overwritten by your spread operator. Okay, so that will be updated in your state basically. Okay, so that is what basically use state does. So then there is an additional thing like advanced concept to your state. There is something called reducer. Okay, so what is the reducer? So reducer is nothing but I told you, right? So whenever we click on whenever we need states. Okay, so what is the use reducer? What is the purpose of use reducer? Use reducer takes your initial state, okay, and the first thing is your reducer, right? Your function. So what is the reducer function? So in addition to your state, okay, it gives you a function also to update your state. Okay, instead of you are calling set state directly and whatever the data that you want to push, instead, okay, that is a unit you can provide, use your use reducer. Okay, and it takes your reducer function and then you need to update your state. Okay, so initial state. It again gives two things. One is your state and the function that you are going to call your actions. Okay, so you cannot directly call this particular function to modify your state, something similar to your use state. You cannot do that in here. Okay, something like this. But using dispatch, you can call the action that you want to perform. Okay, for example, increment, decrement, and reset. Whenever you call increment, you can just dispatch the type equal to increment, and you can send some parameters if you want. Okay, decrement type equal to decrement, and reset type equal to reset. Okay, so once you call dispatch function, what will happen? It will call the reducer function that you mentioned here, like count reducer, right? It will call this particular function. Okay, and by default, the first param is your current state. What is your current status? Count equal to 0, right? That particular count equal to 0 will be coming here, and action is the whatever that you pass in here in your dispatch function, that will be coming as an action here. So what will come? So if I click on increment, so dispatch type equal to increment, right? So I will be getting action here, action dot type equal to increment, right? So I just return a switch case. If it is increment, okay, return your existing state plus modifying your count. Okay, so inside my action, I have my by here. So by is nothing but 2. So increment by increment by 2, decrement by 1. Okay, so whatever that I send here in my action, so it will increment. Okay, so action dot type here increment, it will increment my count to whatever that by I give. Okay, so if it is 0, if your count is 0, something like state dot count equal to 0, and your action dot type is 2, right? So here, so action dot by equal to 2, right? So 0 plus 2, 2. That will be written, and whatever that is written from your count reducer or reducer function, that will be applied to your state directly. Okay, so here there is a state. You have mentioned initial state like count equal to 0. You have given your reducer function. It gives two things. One is your state and a dispatch function. Using a dispatch function, you can call your actions. And you can call type equal to increment, and you can mention any object properties that you want. Okay. So whenever you call dispatch function, it will call the reducer function that you gave. Okay. So count reducer. So count reducer will be called here. By default, you will be getting your state, current state, and action that you passed. Okay. So you passed increment, right? So based on the type that you sent, like increment, you are modifying the state. So taking the copy of your existing state, modifying the count value by 2. Okay, so you are sending 2. Same way for decrement, you are decrementing by 1 because you sent 1 here, right? That's why. If you send reset, I will take the existing state and count equal to 0. If you want to, if you pass any other params apart from increment, decrement, and reset, by default, it is going to return your state. Okay, so that's how your use reducer works. So clear on the use state and use reducer? Can everyone confirm? Alrighty. Okay, so let's move on to the next phase. Okay, so next thing is use effect. So if you go to the use effect here, so what is the use effect? So use effect is to make use of life cycle methods. Okay, so life cycle methods. What is the life cycle method? Like component mount, component update, and other things, right? So use effect can be used in 4 different types. Okay, so here, so use effect can be used it in this way. You can use it in this way and use it 4 different types. Okay, so use effect is nothing but a function. Okay, so it takes a function as an argument, a first argument, and something called array as a second argument. Okay, so if you mention empty array, an array without any elements inside it, that will act as a component mount. Okay, so same way component update, same use effect. If we don't mention any array here as a second parameter, this particular thing will be called whenever a state change happens. Okay, so whatever the state change happens, this particular function will be called. Okay, so what about use effect with particular parameter? Suppose if you mention a state variable here, for example count here. Okay, so what happens? This particular use effect will be called only when your count state is modified, not for all the states. Okay, same way, if you have if you have return statements inside your use effect, this will be called whenever the component is been removed from the UI, which is something like component will unmount. Okay, so this is how we need to use effect 4 different ways. Use effect with your empty, with mentioning an array with the empty thing here, okay, and with use effect without any param, okay. If you don't mention anything, it will call for every state changes. But if you mention an array with a state variable inside it, what will happen? This will be called only that particular state is changed, okay. And if you have return statement inside your use effect, this will be called when the component is removed from the UI. Something called component will unmount, okay. Clear on the use effect part? Can everyone confirm on the use effect part? Okay. So what else? If we call a function inside component did mount use effect, it shows a warning React hook use effect has a missing dependency. So inside that particular function, what did it do?
I can finish on what I'm talking about.
I couldn't hear you properly.
Hello, am I audible now?
No, the base is high. Can you? Yes. Hello.
Am I audible now?
Yes. Now it's.
Yeah, I can actually share my screen. What I'm talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
Here under the use effect, I have called the function get names. Under that, there is React hook use effect as a missing dependency is showing.
Okay, can you go to the get names here?
I'm just setting the state here.
Okay, so whenever you call, so whatever the function you have in your get names,
okay.
So inside your get names, what you have done here is you have modified your state, right?
Yeah.
So you need to give your state as a dependency there. Okay, so that's why it's throwing. Is it throwing an error or warning?
No, just means warning is it is throwing.
Oh, okay. So that's not the case. Okay, so it's just a warning. Okay, so ignore that. Okay, actually, what use effect will do is we will never we cannot go without the dependency injection. Okay, so that's why it's throwing an error. It's because you have ESLint in place. So the documentation see here at the bottom, ESLint React hooks.
Yeah.
So it's just ESLint is doing that, but in the case of your React, okay, that is not needed. So it's a good way. Okay, so that's not an issue.
Okay, and under the means we can't set the use effect function to async, and under that under means in this use effect function we can actually call an API function using await. It is throwing an means a big error, I think, error or warning like that. If I say
inside your use effect, okay, maybe use effect is an use effect can be used in async.
Like this. Effect callbacks are synchronous to prevent race condition. Put the async function inside, something like that.
What happens here? Yeah, that's what I told you in the component in mount section, right? Can you remember that? So in the get names, you cannot call multiple APIs and other things. So that's why you need to call a function, and you can have that particular function as async. You cannot have use effect as an async here.
Okay.
So get names can be an async function.
Okay.
That's what.
Okay.
So that's why I told you you can have one statement pending here, one statement placed here, and inside that you can have multiple statements inside it. Get names. Again, it's not an error. It will work as expected, but still you should avoid that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So is there any dependencies to automatically detect what should be the next operation while we code? Dependencies to automatically detect. Dependencies. You're explaining about, or you're expecting any extensions? Extensions or dependencies? Yeah, on the day I told you, right? So you can use React simple snippets. So it's an extension of your VS Code library here. You can go here, the extensions, simple React snippet. So this is the one I use. Okay. So if you use this, see, they give here. Okay. So if you use import, it will give everything directly. See. So you can use it if you want. This is the good one. Okay. But as a beginner, please don't prefer this. That's why I will not prefer this. If not, I'll be telling them in the first class itself. That's why I didn't mention. You as a thing, you don't please use this. Okay. So try writing from code from the scratch. So this is the library that we basically use. So see here now. So if you go here, if you write like import, so if I have import here, can directly use it automatically. Same way if you mention something like CCC, okay. If you use CCC, it will create a class for you directly. Okay. See, everything is created automatically. So there are multiple things in your React code snippet. If you go to the documentation, you'll get to know that, but never use that. Okay, I will not prefer them. That's why. So some shortcuts are there. If you mention CCC and enter, it will create a class component directly. We need not start from the scratch like constructor, and that's why I'm typing from the scratch. Yeah. Yeah, that's all about your use React hooks. So the last topic for today is, I think, routers. Okay, React routers. So for your React routers, I have the second app. Okay. So what is the purpose of React routers? So React routers is to have the ability to have different URLs, and based on the URL, you are going to display certain content. For example, /about me, it should display about page. Same way /post, it should display post. Okay. So the application starts at the first component called app.js here. Okay. So the first thing that you need to know whenever you use a router is something called browser router, which is from your React router DOM package. Okay. React router DOM. So if you go here, we have our browser router here. See, browser router here, and inside that, okay, you can mention routes. For example, route, if it is /about, your about component. Same way post, it should be post component, and same way for others as well. Suppose if you don't want to do any of these things, okay, so for like 404 page, you can mention route path, and if you mention star, what happens here is it will apply to all the pages so that are not matched with this. Okay, so you can mention something like 404 page here. Okay, so that is the thing. So that is the purpose of your route. Okay, and there is something called exact. So what is an exact? If you mention exact to a particular route, it will the particular path will be exactly matched to that particular URL. Okay. Suppose, for example, if you place your this particular thing here at the top, what will happen? First, the slash will be called, okay, and then /about will be shown. Okay. So that's not the case. So that's why we have it in the bottom and have the exact placed here. So this will be called only when exactly the URL matches with slash. Okay. So then if you want to return only one thing from your components, which only one thing from the route, you can mention switch. Okay. So if you mention switch, only one particular thing will be matched from this particular route, and that will be rendered in the UI. Okay. So that is the purpose of your browser router, exec and other things. Okay. So redirect. Okay. So as I mentioned here, for example, if you go to /home, and if you want to redirect to any other page, you can directly use redirect to /. Okay, something like this. How to redirect using component? You can use this redirect functionality. Okay. Or I told you, right? This dot history dot push, this dot history dot replace the history object inside your component. So that will be allowing you to redirect to a different component, right? So that is the purpose of your history object. Okay. So far this is like browser router, redirect, and route and other things. What is the link purpose? What is the purpose of link? So we can have anchor tag and href tag. Okay. So something like this. But why do you prefer this? So which is from your React router DOM, because whenever you use anchor tag, okay, it will refresh the whole page and all the JS, CSS file, data, everything will be coming from the scratch. Okay. So we don't need them, and that is not the use case of your React. Okay. So that is the purpose. So what is the purpose of link then? So link here, okay, what it does is only that particular component will be rendered, okay, and not the whole page. Okay. So if you use link, so something like anchor tag, here we have link. Okay. Something like href tag, we have something called to. Okay. So link, whenever it is /, whenever you click on home, it will go to /. Whenever you click on about, it will go to /about. Okay. And the same, there is something called nav link here. Okay. So what is the purpose of nav link? It is exactly similar to your link. Okay. Again, it takes two property. Okay. Only thing is it gives you two other properties, something called active class and active style. Okay. So you can mention some style whenever you click on the particular link. Okay. It will show you the CSS will be applied, whatever that you mentioned. Suppose if you have active class equal to active here, right? So you have a class called active in your CSS. Okay. So that particular green color will be applied to this particular link. Okay. So those styling purpose only we are using nav link. Okay. So something like active class, if you want to write the styles directly here, you can use active style. Okay. So the same way, you can use exact. What is the purpose? Because slash, if you use slash and /about, okay. So both the things will be in the same color. Okay. Something like that. Okay. So because slash is matched and /about is matched. In order to overcome this, you can use exact, and only if the slash matches, this particular CSS will be applied. Okay. So that is the thing with your React basic things: browser router, link, nav link, route, redirect, and switch. Okay. So that is the thing. So for hover also, you can just apply a CSS. Okay. For example, in your active class, you will have in your index.js CSS, right? So something like this, active. You can have hover effect here. Okay. And you can add them here as well. And you can apply the CSS. Whenever hover, you can apply some colors. Okay. Basic thing is you are going to give some color there. So I mean, you are going to give some class here, and you can apply those CSS there itself. Okay. Class name will remain active only. Yes, because you have mentioned active class has active here, right? So you can mention in that way. So that is the thing. Yeah. So then what else? So in your React router DOM, okay. So suppose if you click on about, okay, what will happen? It will go to this particular component, okay. Or if you go to home page here, okay. So whenever I click on home things, it will come to this page here, right? Okay. So whenever you mention your properties, so here in your app component, so whenever I click on home here, okay, your home component is rendered. Okay. So inside your home component, by default in your props, you'll be getting our history, location, and something called match. Okay. So those things will be available inside your props. Okay. So it is added by your React router DOM. Okay. So those things is added by your React router DOM. Inside that, if you use history object, what is the purpose of history object? So history object will have something called go back, go forward, push, replace, and other things. Okay. So some other properties we basically use. What is the purpose of history? It is used to navigate from one page to another. For example, if you want to go to back, you can use go back function. If you want to use forward, go forward. Suppose if you want to redirect, someone asked me now how to redirect to using a component. So you can use history.push and that particular component, or history.replace that particular component. Okay. So that is the thing with your history object. Same if you go to about page, and again we have something called history object. So in the case of your React class component, you will be getting it inside your this dot props, okay, and that will be available here. But in the case of functional component, again you'll be getting inside your props, okay. So you can directly use props dot history and props dot other things as well. Also, there are some React hooks that are given by your history that are given by your React router. Use history is going to give your history object. Use location is going to give your location object. Use route match is going to give your match object. Use param is nothing but parameters, right? Like post ID, post/1, post/2, and post/3. So those params will be available using use params. Okay. So you can directly use props from your component, or you can use your React hooks. Use history or other things. Okay. It is going to give again the same things. Okay. So that is the thing. So about what else? So post here and post here. See, we used use params. Okay. So whenever we click on post ID 1, post/2, post/3, this particular thing will be called, right, this particular component. Okay. Here the parameters, right, parameters dot post ID will be coming here in as a props. You can use props, or if you don't want to use it, you can use params and get those parameters directly. Okay. So parameters dot post ID. Okay. So that is the thing with your React router DOM. Okay, clear on the React routers. Can everyone confirm? Alrighty, okay. So until this part, okay. So our React basics are done. Okay. So after that, we took 2 classes, 2 sessions basically. It holds something called your advanced concept. Okay. So what we saw, something called references, pure components, how to do validations in your props, higher order component, and context. Okay. So we'll quickly see this in just 5 minutes. Okay, let's see. So what I'll do is just give a minute, I'll put it in chat. Okay, so what we are seeing. So references. Okay, so what is the references? What is the purpose of references? I told you references is nothing but we are giving a unique identifier to any other elements in your HTML, right? Something like ID, class, these are all something like identifying the particular element. Okay, so ID is an identifier, right? Same way in the case of React, we have something called reference. Okay, so what is the purpose of your references? So where did we use references? I will show it here. Okay, so see here. So what is the reference? What is the purpose of reference? So basic understanding is if you want to have, there is a library. Okay, if you cannot modify the code in that particular library. Okay, but if you want to modify them, okay, you can use something called references. Okay, how to create a reference? So in the case of class component, you can directly use something called create ref. Okay, so create ref is from your React library. Okay, same if you want to use the same in your functional component, you can use ref. Okay, in order to create that particular reference. Okay, so what you need to do, so whenever you create a reference, what will happen? There will be you need to understand one thing. What is that thing? Your current property, whatever that you apply, will be inside your current. Okay, inside that particular reference. Okay, suppose I create a reference, something called counter ref, and assign as a reference to my counter component here. Okay, so counter component. So here it is my counter component. Okay, so this is a component. It has increment, decrement, and other functions here. Okay, and see here, I'm accessing my counter component from my app.js using references. So just mentioning reference and that particular reference variable. Okay, so whenever if you want to do the same thing here, increment and decrement and reset, I have 3 buttons. Okay, so I'm going to increment. Okay, I'm going to call this increment function inside my counter component from my app component. How can I do that? See, I have created a reference here, right? Okay, I have a button called increment from map and decrement and other things. Okay, so increment, decrement, and reset. So here, whenever I click on increment, okay, I'm calling that particular increment function from my counter component. How did I do that? Counter reference dot current dot increment. So whenever you create a reference, there will be a current object, right? So counter reference dot current and that particular increment function. So all the properties that are in the counter that will be available here, use inside your counter f dot current. You can call increment, you can call decrement, you can call reset. Even if you want to call set state, see, I'm using set state here and modifying the document directly here. Okay, you can do it in this way also. Okay, clear on the reference. The same applies in your function component as well. You can use something like here. Okay, so here I use ref. Okay, same in the class component, you need to use create ref. Only thing is you need to use this. Okay, so this dot count ref dot current, this dot count ref dot current, and same applies here. Okay, clear on the reference part. Yeah, so sorry guys, I got a emergency call. Okay, so that's what references. Okay, so if you want to create references in function component, you need to use ref. If you want to use them in the class component, you need to use create ref. Okay, so I'll try to cover all the topics in short. Okay, so in one session we'll try to do that. So what is the purpose of pure component? Okay, so pure component is nothing but I told you on that day. Okay, so here in my counter component I use something called pure component. What is the reason? So already I have a state here, count equal to 0. Okay, suppose if I call my reset function, what will happen? I am again calling this dot set state to count equal to 0. So already count equal to 0, and again I'm calling it count equal to 0, right? Okay, so again it should re-render, right? So your render function will be called whenever a state change happens, but state is already 0, and again it is, if you want to update your state, okay, so it's not like feasible to call your render function again, right? So that is not the right way, right? So if you use pure component, okay, it will not re-render again. Okay, so that is the purpose of your pure component. Already there is a state. If the state has the same value, whenever you call that particular, if you want to modify them, okay, we need not re-render them. But if you use normal component here in your React library, it will re-render. But if you use pure component, it will not re-render again. Okay, so that is the purpose of your pure component. Okay, very simple, no other things here. Okay, but the same will not apply in your objects. Okay, so this won't work in your objects part. Okay, it will apply only for your primitive types like numbers, strings, and those things only it will work. Okay, so that is the one disadvantage of your pure component. Okay, so that's all about your pure component. Very simple topic. So now type checking. Okay, so what is a type checking? For example, something called props validation. We call it as a props validation. For example, in your counter component, for example, it may take some properties like name, age, and gender. It is going to display 3 properties. Okay, name, age, and gender. Okay, suppose if you don't pass those properties wherever that you use this component, what will happen? This area will be empty, right? Okay, so name hyphen, it should be empty, right? Okay, So in order to overcome this, okay, so we can give some warning, something like this, okay. So you can use prop types, a package from npm prop types here, okay. So here, whatever the component that you create, so here you created a component called counter, right? We can just add two properties, dot prop types, dot default props, okay. So what is the prop types here? So if you mention like name, age, and gender is something like a props, okay. And inside that you can call props type dot string, okay. So whatever the type that you want to mention, okay, suppose name should be a string, okay, so then you can mention prop types dot string. Same way age should be a string or number, you can mention props type dot number, and you can just add a property called is required, okay. If you mention this, what will happen if you don't pass your name or age from the component that you use your counter component, okay. So what is the props basically? So you can send some properties from your wherever that you use, right? So you can send those properties and that will be available here, okay. So name, age, and gender should be a props, and name and age should be required, okay. You should send it as a string. Suppose if you send inside your name, if you send number, it will throw you a warning, okay. So if you want to have some validation, you can mention name should be a string and it should be required, mandatory, okay. Same way for age, it should be number, and same way for gender, it should be one of these values, male, female, and other, okay. If you don't send those values, if you don't send, if you send a different value, it will throw you a warning, okay. So that is what your prop types is, okay. Default props is nothing but, suppose you don't send gender, okay, by default you can take other as a value, okay. Suppose in the component that you use your counter component, suppose if you don't send your gender as a property here, okay, suppose if you don't send it here, it will take the default props here, okay. So by default it takes other, okay. So that is all about your props validation, okay. So something like you need to use prop types, okay. So you need to have prop types and default props as a property to your component, okay. This applies to your functional component as well, okay. So clear on these topics. So basic topics of your, advanced topics in your React: references, pure component, and props validation. Clear? Yeah, I know this will be like overloading, okay, but this is a React. This is something like recap session. So recap session should be like this. Because again, if I take if it is a recap, if I take each and every concept again from the scratch, again it will take like 10 sessions, okay. So that's why I'm trying to complete all the topics in one day, just to give you a recap, okay. So basic thing you need to understand here, we already saw those topics very deeply, okay. But today we need to know I just need to give some to throw you some keywords, okay. So for example, if it is a reference, you need to know create ref, you need to know use ref, something like you should have something called current object inside your reference. So that's what. Same way for pure component, it should work with your string, it should not work with your numbers, or it should not work with your object or arrays, okay. Same way for type checking, you need to know some keywords, something like prop types, default props, okay. So I'm just remembering you those things, okay. So that's it. Okay, so the last thing is higher order component and context. Okay, what is the purpose of higher order component? So higher order component is to reuse some logics in your application. Okay, so I will open that. So I already used 3, right? Okay, so what is the purpose of higher order component? Suppose if you want to have some shared logics in your application, okay, you can have them as you can have those components in a different file, and you can have them imported in anywhere you want. Okay, so basically, what is higher order function in your JavaScript? A function that takes another function as an input and returns a new function. Okay, so that is what higher order function is. Same way, in the case of component, a component that takes one component as an input and returns a new component, okay, and that is something called higher order component. So if I go to app component here, okay, what happens here is I have some things mentioned here, okay, so don't consider these things, okay, for now. So here I use something called with borders, okay, so with borders, so it is a component I created already with borders here, okay. So we usually use with, okay, whenever you use higher order component, okay. So here when you call with borders, what will happen? Your app component is going as an input. Okay. So with borders is the higher order component that takes app component as an input. Okay. And returns a new component. Okay. So returns a new component. So for example, if I pass app component as an input, that will be available here, right? So we'll have some basic name called wrapped component. Okay. So here, and what are the properties that we send? Okay. So that will be available here, and I'm sending the wrapped component again. Okay, with a div. Okay, that is going to apply some border. Okay, the same component. Okay, so this wrapped component is nothing but your app component. Okay, so because you used it here, right? Okay, so the app component is nothing but your wrapped component. In along to that. Okay, we just added a div. Okay, with some border. Okay, and that's why it's something called with borders. Okay, so this is to reuse your logic. Suppose if you can use the with borders in whatever the component that you want. Okay, it will directly apply your border. Okay, so we need not like go to each and every component, have the class mentioned inside each and every component and have them used it. Okay, instead you can use the higher order component. It takes a component as an input and returns a new component, something like this. Okay, and you can even modify your properties. You can change new property. You can modify existing property. Okay, and other things as well. Okay, so that is the purpose of your higher order component. Okay. So then we have something called context. What is the purpose of context? So someone asked me like, what is the props drilling? Okay. You have app component. You have test component. You have test2 component. Inside your test2 component, you have test3 component. Inside your test3 component, you have test4 component. Suppose you have consider in this way. You have an app component. Inside your app component, you have test. Inside your test, you have test2. Inside your test2, you have test3, and inside test3, you have test4. Okay. Suppose you have some properties that are sent from your app component to test component. Okay. For example, name equal to GUI. Okay, is sent to your test component as a property. And if you want to access this particular property in your test4 component, how to do that? So you need to pass from app to test, from test to test2, test2 to test3, and test3 to test4. Okay. So this is how you need to pass that particular property, right? This is something called props drilling. Okay. So you have a props from app to test component, and you are sending that particular props to each and every component inside that particular component. Okay. So from app to test, test to test2, test3 to test4, and other things. Okay. So in order to overcome this is something called props drilling. Consider there is like 100 components inside your application. Okay. Suppose you have test 100, okay, a component that needs a data from your app component. How can you do that? It is really tough, right? If you use props drilling, like app to test to test 3, test 4, and test 4, and followed by like test to 99 and test 99 to test 100. That is really annoying, right? So that's why context comes into place. Okay. So context is nothing but it is going to be a shared state. Okay. So what is a shared state? Shared state is, if you go to the context.js here, okay, we have something called count context. Okay. So if you want to create a context, you need to use something called create context from your React library. And you can mention some default values inside it. So whatever the value that you want to have it in a shared way. Okay. So if you mention it here, okay. So for example, if you have count equal to 0, that particular thing will be available in each and every component, even in your test 100. Okay. You can just import this context and have them accessed. Okay. So suppose if I'm going to app.js component here, okay, I'm just importing the count context here. Okay. So there are two things. One is provider and one is consumer. What is a provider? So if you want to change the value inside your context, suppose here it is empty. Okay. Suppose if you add some properties to this particular thing after some point of time in your app.js, you have used counter context, right? And there is something called provider. Okay. So counter context or provider, and it takes a value. What is the value? Count, increment, and decrement, and reset. What is the count value? So which is a state inside your app.js. So 0. Okay. And increment, decrement, and reset. So these are something like a function. Okay. Increment, decrement, and reset. These functions here. Okay. So that will be passed as a property. Okay. So once you do this, okay. So whatever the component inside it, okay, whatever the component inside your provider, okay, that will have access to that particular value. Okay. So you need not pass your count to your test1, and inside your test1 you need not pass to test2, and from test2 you need not pass to test3. Okay. No need of a props billing. Okay, but we can just mention your provider here. Okay, once you use this provider, you can just consume it using something called context dot consumer. Okay, I'll show you something like this. Counter context dot consumer. It returns as a context object. Inside that particular context object, you will have access to val count, increment, and reset. Okay, so this context object will have count, increment, decrement, and reset. It can be a value, it can be a function, it can be anything. Okay, that can be that is what that you want to share to another component. Okay, so test to so here context here, right? So I can call context.count. Okay, and whatever that you want. Okay, so you can consume it in this way, something called counter context.consumer. Suppose if you want to consume in a different way. Okay, so suppose this is a function component, right? You can use something called use context from your React library. So use context is nothing but a React hook, something like use state, use reducer, and use effect, right? So this is something called use context, okay? And you can just mention that particular context here. So the context object will have that particular data. So you can directly call context dot count, context dot increment, decrement, and reset. Okay. The same way if you want to use it in a class component, okay. So you need to use something called context type, static context type. You should not change these value. Okay, it should be static, and your variable name should be in this way, context type. Okay, and equal to and whatever the context name that you mentioned here. Okay, once you do this, your property like count, increment, decrement, everything will be available inside this dot context. Okay, so this dot context dot count. Okay, so the same way if you want to call them increment, this dot context dot increment. Okay, you can call it in that way. So basically, context is nothing but a shared state. Okay, there is something called provider and consumer. Okay, you can call provider context dot provider, counter context dot provider. If you want to consume them, you can use counter context dot consumer, and it will give us a context object. Whatever that you mentioned inside your provider, value, count, increment, and other things, right? That will be available inside your consumer as well. If you don't want to use counter context or consumer, there are two ways. If you want to use them in your class component, you need to use, function component, you need to use context hook. In the case of class component, you need to use in this static context type and give a context to that. Okay. And once you do this, automatically inside your this dot context, your count, your increment, decrement, everything will be available. Okay. So that's a quick recap of your context in order to overcome the props link. Okay, so that is the thing. Suppose there is a test file JSON which is not rendered in any component, but need the value provided by app.js provider. Is there any way to achieve that? So test file is not rendered in any component. Okay, so if you don't render test file, there is no need to use your test file at all, right? So there is no need at all in order to get them access. So that is the context, right? So if you don't use testify, okay, you are not rendering in any part of the application. You don't need them to access the data at all. So whatever the component that is inside here, okay, whatever the component that is inside your provider, okay, that will have access to your value. Okay, suppose if you have testify inside these things, okay, then you can access this data. Suppose if you don't use testify, okay, so you cannot access those data. That is the hierarchy.
Hello, am I audible?
Hello, yeah, please go ahead, Mas.
Actually, there is a situation that we have to use that count context provider in test1.js.
Okay, test1.js if you want to use your provider. Okay.
Yeah. And actually inside the app.js there is another component test5.js.
Test5. Okay. So where it will be?
Yeah, the actually inside the app component, the test1 instead of test1 there will be test5.
So here test5. Okay.
And please remove that count context provider in the app.js file.
So here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And count context provider will be test1.js in the test1.js.
Okay.
And if I need the value of the
No, you cannot access them.
provider, which on the equal test 5, how to access that?
No, you cannot access them.
You cannot.
So basically, it should be inside a provider. So whatever the component that is inside provider, then you can access those the corresponding components inside that particular thing will be accessed. Okay. So if you don't use if you don't need provider at all, but if you want to access your value, you can consume still. Okay, still you can consume, and it will act as a different context, and it will be empty. There will be no data at all.
Yeah. I have actually tried that. So actually, it is coming empty. So that
Yeah. So basically, the hierarchy is this. Okay. Suppose you have till, for example, here you have count, increment, decrement, and reset, and inside that you have test one. So inside your test one, you just leave it as it is. Okay. And your test two. Okay. So here, if you use a counter context start provider and give some new values. Okay. And from now, this point of time, whatever the components inside this test two component will have data from this provider instead of from the app component.
Okay.
It will be
updated.
Yes. Only for the above component, not the, for example, only after the test two. Before test two, test one will have the values from your app component.
Okay. Now got it.
So that is a different context. This is a different context.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. And your React part is done. And please go over the things and get ready yourself. So we'll see with another topic. Okay. So I'll share you the feedback form in short. Okay. Before that, so in Zen portal, some tasks are given just as tasks. What should you do for them? Yeah, please do submit those tasks. Okay. So I think the Zen portal tasks are it is going to majorly focus on the UI only. Okay. So there will be two tasks, I think. One is you need to develop admin page, and one is your cart page. I already told you cart page, right? So cart. So add to cart. So those functionalities you need to do and submit there. So it's mandatory. So that is officially you need to do that. And yeah, there are 7 tasks. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I know 7 tasks. I mean, I know 3 tasks. Not sure about the 7 tasks. Yeah, but tasks are mandatory. You need to submit those tasks in your Zen portal. Okay, so that is the thing. So can you please send the text file for references of the video recordings? Okay, sure. I will share this. So I'll share the entire thing. And then can you send all the source files, basic to advanced? Okay, I'll share you these things as well. I will share you 3 files, basically 3 folders. Okay. So then suppose there is a state in test 1 and want to change the state from test 2, there is a way. Suppose there is a state in test 1, want to change the state from test 2, there is a way. Okay. So I'm going to ask you guys a simple question. Okay. See here now. So this will be your interview question basically. So this is my counter component. Okay. A basic component here. Okay. Don't take it in this way. Okay. So basic thing here is I have a component called app component. Okay. And inside that I have counter component. My app component has a state called name equal to GUI. Okay. So I have this particular thing, state. I'm going to pass this state as a prop to your counter component. So in my app component, I have counter component here. Okay. And here I'm sending name as something like this dot state dot name. Okay. So this is a parent and this is your child. Okay. So in your app component, you have counter component, right? So this should be a parent and this should be a child. Okay. So whenever if you want to pass data from your parent to child component, how can you pass? Using properties, okay, using props. Suppose if you want to send your props from my counter component to app component, how can you do that? So someone asked me in the chat, I think Arun, yeah. Suppose there is a state in test one, okay, test one, and I want to change the test one. Suppose I need to change the state here from my counter component. How can I do that? Okay, so that's the question here, right? So it's again, if you want to pass data from your child parent to child, you will use state. Again, if you want to pass data from your child to parent, again it's going to be a props. How? You will have a function. Okay, so we'll have your function called change state, or you can have something like this, something like change name. Okay, you will have a function in your app component. Okay, and you can send that particular function here, change name, and this dot change name. You can have this, right? So here I'm passing my state, I'm passing my function. Okay. Suppose in my counter component, what will have, I can have a button inside my counter component. I can call the change name function and I can send some parameters to my change name. Okay. So this is how you will be passing data from your child to parent. How will change it? So you have created a function and you send it as a property, and whenever needed, okay, whenever if you want to pass data from your child to parent, you can call that particular function and you can pass data here, right? That particular data will be available here, right? For example, you are getting a new name here, okay, and you can directly update using this dot set state. So name equal to this particular name, okay. So again, I'm going to use the same property to pass data from my child component to parent component. Okay, clear? The same question that you asked, like test one to test two and test two to test one. Clear on this? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks for confirming. And yeah, that's what you need to fill in. You should complete your okay, so basically you need to complete your task in the Zen portal. Okay, so yes, that's what. Then what else? Post.js I installed. We should avoid using context and user. Yeah, it depends on the situation. Okay, so it's not like you should completely avoid. It will be very rare. Like if you want to access a library, you should use ref, and in some part of time you need context. Okay, so it is not like you will always use, like we have set state, right? So we, in the case of set state, we need to use always, but use ref context is depends on the application, depends on the requirement. Okay, so it's not like mandatory. We should not, I'm not saying like you should avoid, but it is very minimal use. I installed npm install react bootstrap next upload. Okay, from tomorrow onwards, we will learn. Okay, so that's the question I asked you. Okay, so do you guys need time to before moving on to the next topic? So then, what is the plan for today? Tomorrow is, so we basically had a plan of the database. Okay, so that is the plan I had. So this will be your plan. So it's 26th, right? So your 27 and 28, we'll be focusing on MySQL. 29 and 30, we'll be focusing on MongoDB basics. Everything is basics, okay? And this is done for this week, okay? And from August 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 sessions, right? Okay. So 2 to 6, okay? So from August 2 to 6, it should be Node.js, 5 days. And there will be 1 day for your deployments. So how to deploy your apps to Heroku and Netlify. So I'll have 1 day for it. So this is the thing. So 27 for tomorrow, I will cover the MySQL basics like MySQL DB, what is a MySQL DB, how to create tables and other things. We'll go over those things. Then next day, next 2 days, it should be MongoDB. And the next week, completely from 2nd to 6th, it should be Node.js. And for 1 day, I will complete deployments. Okay. Maybe like Node.js may take 6 days. I'm not sure, but I have 5 days as an agenda. Let's see. So combining with this, there will be like 6 days. Okay. So hopefully it should be completed by hopefully it should be completed by 10th. So August 10th, your Node.js and MongoDB will become, and the database part will be completed. That is the plan. So I'll have 9, 2 to 6 and 1 day for Node.js and deployment. This is the plan. Okay. What other concepts of React will be beneficial? Yeah, in my view, first you need to be very clear with your basics. Okay, so please thorough your basics first, and that would be really helpful. And yeah, mostly I have covered most of the things that the real time that what we use in our company. Okay, so whatever the company that you go, so this will be the thing. Okay, so we will not be moving to any other other than this. Okay, so if you go to the React documentation itself, mostly these will be the topics. Okay, so there is nothing much in your React. Okay, so then AWS will teach AWS and system. No, I will not be teaching. So AWS and system design may be a different mentor. So I focus on MERN stack. So MongoDB, React, Node, database, other things. And those AWS system design, those DevOps operations part will be taken care by a different vendor. So is there any benefits of importing components from library than using CDN link? Okay, if you use the CDN link, what will happen? You need to apply your class names. You need to know the class name that you want to mention in your Bootstrap. For example, you import your Bootstrap CDN link, okay, and now you write your components. Okay, what will happen? So instead of using the components, if you use your class names, you need to mention LG, SM, whatever the thing that you want. But here they will give you everything as a component. You can just go or give a table, and if you want to give some CSS like script or whatever the things that you want, you can just pass in as a property that will work as expected. Okay, so that is the benefit. So basically, go with your React itself. You need not. If you want to use React, okay, and that is the purpose of introducing React Bootstrap. Okay, so there will be some benefits of using them, like easily you can manage your code and other things. Okay, so other than that implementation part and everything, again there should be a CDN link available there. Okay, so again if you go into the Bootstrap documentation itself or Bootstrap library itself, they will be using CDN again. Okay, so if without that we cannot use, but they are giving a component, why not we use that? That is the thing. Yeah, that's it for React. Okay, I will give you these things. inside my desktop. Yeah, I have given you the text file. Could you give some insights of task 3 of Zen? No, it will take, if I go with the task, okay, so it will come, it will take, like, consider there is a 7 tasks, okay, if I need to explain everything, it will take other sessions also. So that's why, so it is to, tasks are to try yourself, okay, so try those things, and I'm not going to show you those, okay. So compress. This is our basics, first source, and this is our second source. And this is our third source. Okay, yeah. I have shared you the 3 sources that we used in our React part, and I have shared you the text file as well. And here is the feedback. Yeah. Thank you guys. And your front end part is done. Okay. So we will continue the same app in our Node app as well. Okay. In the next 2 days we'll be following up with the databases. Like first 2 days MySQL and next 2 days is MongoDB. And from Monday we will see Node.js. So Node.js will take, like, again, it will be very short. It will be like only 5 to 6 days max. Okay. So yeah, all the best and do well with your Node React.js. We'll see on the backend part from tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you and see you tomorrow.